Onde Onde Mtsan. This is Thongya, a podcast by the District 7 Legislative Office. For our cultural selection for this podcast edition, I chose to focus on Kiowa hymns. Our Kiowa hymns are a unique fusion of Native American culture and Christianity, and how our Kiowa people have adapted and adopted new religious practices while preserving their cultural identity. And I like to sing Kiowa hymns because it uses our language. Christianity was introduced to our Kiowa people and other tribes by missionaries. In the case of our Kiowa people, the transition to Christianity happened rather smoothly because a lot of crucial elements that are included in Christianity and religious transformation was music, and our Kiowa hymns are a really good source of our Kiowa music. Our Kiowa people are musical people, and so we adapted our Christian hymns into our own language, creating a distinctive style that incorporated our Kiowa musical traditions, using vocables and then syllables, and then that have meaning within our Kiowa singing. These hymns were often accompanied by sometimes a drum beat, but they maintain our traditional Kiowa elements in a Christian context. I chose our Easter song to share with you all, and just wanted to send a good blessing out to you all. It's a meaningful song to me, and I think about today is February the 29th when we're recording this podcast, and my grandpa's birthday, and he used to really enjoy the Easter song, so I'd like to dedicate this song to his memory. Jesus sade apokipaton zoigya, Jesus sade apokipaton zoigya, te badot sai komi, te badot sai komi, ogo akoi pedo apaton se. Te badot sai komi, te badot sai komi, ogo akoi pedo apaton se. Jesus sade apokipaton zoigya, Jesus sade apokipaton zoigya, te badot sai komi, te badot sai komi, ogo akoi pedo apaton se. Te badot sai komi, te badot sai komi, ogo akoi pedo apaton se. Jesus sade apokipaton zoigya, Jesus sade apokipaton zoigya, te badot sai komi, te badot sai komi, ogo akoi pedo apaton se. Te badot sai komi, te badot sai komi, ogo akoi pedo apaton se. Jesus sade apokipaton zoigya, Jesus sade apokipaton zoigya, te badot sai komi, te badot sai komi, ogo akoi pedo apaton se. Te badot sai komi, Deba dot sai komi, algo pedo, apatonse. The interpretation of this song was that Jesus was nailed onto the tree to save. All call upon him in prayer for our sins. He was nailed to the tree. That's the interpretation of that song. That song was interpreted and created by Godebohon, or Godibo. So I just wanted to share that little song with you. Wish you all a happy Easter this spring, and wish all of your families a renewal, a season of renewal and celebration of our Lord and Savior, KIC Jesus. Aho. So for this episode's legislative update, I'd like to talk to you about our status on our tribal budget. Our legislature has met for several months now on the current budget modification that was passed last week, and so we are now currently going to propose that to the people. You should see a ballot come out and more information on the modification of our tribal budget. As tribal leaders and professionals, it's up to us to build consensus on our tribal budget, and that can be challenging. This task requires careful planning, effective communication, and strategic decision-making. The ultimate goal is to ensure that all of the key stakeholders are aligned with the chairman's proposed budget, and we all understand its impact on the community. So it's crucial to involve key stakeholders in the planning process from the beginning. That includes people that are on the legislature, department heads, community leaders, and even community citizens. Involving them early on will give us valuable insights and feedback as legislators that can help shape the budget. So now that we've passed the modification, it's essential to educate and inform the citizens about the budget, its purpose, and its impact on the tribe. This includes a breakdown of what we're spending money on, our revenue sources, and any trade-offs that may need to be made. Our intent is to provide clear and concise information so that citizens can build understanding and trust with the tribe. Communicating effectively, every organization can improve its communication. Communication is key to building consensus, making sure citizens know what's included in the tribal budget. And this process includes keeping stakeholders informed throughout the entire process, addressing any concerns or questions that citizens may have, and actively listening for citizen feedback. It's also essential to communicate in a transparent and respectful manner. When we created this tribal budget at the beginning of the fiscal year, 2023-2024, it was crucial that we prioritize the needs of the community. This means understanding the current challenges facing the community, and we allocated resources accordingly by prioritizing our Kiowa needs. And we hope that this budget will demonstrate a commitment to serving the best interest of our Kiowa communities. Each stakeholder in this budget, they had their own perspective, and they have their priorities based upon the citizens they represent. But as a legislature, it's essential we consider the many different various perspectives, and we find common ground, and we make compromise and find creative solutions that meet the needs of the majority of our Kiowa citizens. And as a legislature, we made sure that we use data and facts as the tools for building consensus on this budget. You know, our data needs to support our proposals. We need to demonstrate that there is some rationale behind our decisions in order to build trust with our Kiowa citizens. And it's important to be accurate and utilize up-to-date data from reliable resources. And that's often hard to come by when you work within a tribal government. So we have the modification ready to go. Now we move on to tackling the annual budget for the FY 2024-2025 fiscal year. And our Kiowa legislature is taking charge and, again, using professional tactics to build consensus on the tribal budget. It's not an easy task, but again, with careful planning and effective communication with our executive branch and our finance department, we can achieve our goal of creating a budget that benefits the entire Kiowa community. So I encourage our citizens to remain informed, and let's continue to work together towards the common goal of improving the well-being of our tribe through a responsible budgeting practice. I firmly believe that together we can make positive impact and ensure a strong and sustainable future for our community. Keep in mind, this is an ongoing process throughout the year. We also have a legislative order on the table to establish a budget oversight working group. This group will regularly review budgets and revise the annual budget as needed and make modification recommendations to the entire legislature for the upcoming fiscal year. So that's the update on the budget process. We are also discussing our opposition resolution to the cobalt factory, Weston Elements. The Kiowa tribe, we have our Constitution, which establishes our legislative body, and our legislature, through Article 6, Section 6 Alpha of the Constitution, we hold the power to legislate and resolve matters to protect Kiowa citizens and Kiowa lands. And so each legislator has sworn an oath to uphold our Constitution and diligently perform our duties, ensuring the welfare of our people. And we need to protect our people against potential pollution. The planned activities by Weston Elements situated within our Kiowa jurisdiction has raised a lot of concerns regarding their environmental impact, potentially affecting areas of cultural significance and environmental resources vital to the Kiowa people. But it's also crucial to understand that our people need to be protected. The health and well-being, their own health, need to be protected. It's crucial that Weston Elements has a transparent disclosure of its intent and its potential implications on Kiowa territory before it proceeds with any cobalt refining. Our legislative requirements and expectations: we expect all commercial entities within our Kiowa jurisdiction to adhere to federal and Kiowa statutes that protect our air and water quality essential to public health. It's important to understand that the Wichita Mountains are a Class 1 airshed, and that comes with very stringent regulations on what can go on in the area. We don't want to damage that airshed. And of course, the Wichita Mountains is one of the most pristine areas in Oklahoma. We have to protect that and the water and the air quality. So we note that the unfortunate reality is that corporate decisions affecting our environment are made by those who reside outside of our jurisdiction. And often they don't understand that their decisions are affecting the health and well-being of people who may live within our Kiowa, communities. So there are really, really serious economic implications. Our community, while industrious and vibrant, is comprised of a diverse group of people. Some of those communities that are affected may be low-income households, and there are Kiowa, Comanche, and Apache families who would disproportionately bear the burden of an environmental degradation resulting from the industrial pollution that the cobalt factory may make. So as our Kiowa legislature has heard the voices of our people, we assert it's our sovereign right to protect clean air and water for our people, demanding that comprehensive consultations and approvals from Weston Elements are made with our Kiowa government. So we have placed a lot of requirements in this resolution that's currently on the table to promote our sovereignty, assert our sovereignty, and hopefully bring Weston Elements into our jurisdiction and make sure that we are taking care of our environmental impacts, our culture, our people, because in summary, this resolution is a commitment to ecological stewardship, cultural preservation, and the demand for transparency and inclusion in decision-making concerning all activities with the potential to affect our Kiowa environment, air, and water quality, and our people. So that's a little bit on where our cobalt, resolution is. We plan to vote on this later on in March after the 23rd. I also want to give a quick update. After March the 23rd, we'll be voting on our family code that is out there on our website for people to kind of peruse through. This is a bill that establishes a family code within our tribal court, which is our judicial system that operates within our Kiowa communities, and that court has jurisdiction over legal matters, including family law disputes. So family codes are also known as tribal codes or tribal laws, are a set of regulations and laws created by tribal governments to govern the relationships and interactions between individuals within our Kiowa community. So these codes cover a wide range of topics, including marriage, divorce, child custody, and adoption, inheritance, just to name a few. So there's a real need that our family code get established within our Kiowa tribal court. Courts are a big part of our inherent sovereignty and are considered, tribes are considered sovereign nations within the United States, and we are able to enforce our own laws separate from state and federal laws. In the past, there's been a lot of Native American families who've been subjected to state laws and courts that did not understand or respect their cultural practices. So this has led to forced removal of children from their families and communities. We hope that the implementation of a family code in our tribal court will provide a way for Native American families to have their legal matters heard and resolved within our own Kiowa cultural context. In conclusion, the family code is necessary for the protection of tribal sovereignty, cultural traditions, and the well-being of our Kiowa families. It will allow for more inclusive and culturally sensitive approach to resolving legal matters within these communities. So stay tuned. We'll let you know when the family code is implemented and what that will mean for our tribal court moving forward. The third piece of legislation is the Minimum Commission Standards Act. The legislature has been enacted since the 2017 Constitution was implemented, and we've recently had a lot of commissioners and boards created under the new administration. A lot of times those commissioners and board members often don't have any standards or guidelines to adhere to when it comes to serving as a commissioner or board member. So what do commissions do? What are commissions? Commissions are entities that are created by the Kiowa tribe to help in governing and managing various aspects within the tribe. So these commissions may have a specific focus, such as education, healthcare, election commission, business and commerce. But ultimately, these commissions are responsible for developing policies and procedures related to their area of expertise. So I believe that the Minimum Commission Standards Act is necessary because it will ensure consistency and fairness amongst all our commissions within the Kiowa tribe, as it will set a baseline for all commissions to follow, promoting effective governance within the tribe. So you can read the Commission Standards Act also on our website. It's been posted out there if you'd like to read through it. Let me know if you have any feedback. You can email us. But it's crucial that we have this legislation on file so that we can ensure that we strengthen our governing capabilities of our tribe through its various commissions and boards. And then recently I wanted to invite people to listen to our podcast. This podcast, if you can share it to your social media, share it on your TikTok. We just established a TikTok. We're going to have an Instagram page, and we're going to share this across Kiowa country. So if you can tag your family members, have them listen to our podcast, or join us on TikTok, please invite them to do so. We have a lot of things going on in the community. We also have a community jiu-jitsu class going on in Tulsa every Tuesday and Thursday in March. It's led by Red Cloud NQ, a Kiowa citizen, and the class is taught, the commands are taught in Kiowa. So we invite people to join in, listen in, and
Just watch us as we kind of work out together, stretch, and learn some basic self-defense mechanisms. I thank everybody for listening to this legislative update, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
On this edition of Tonga, we are interviewing the Kiowa Indian Council Administrator, Davetta Geimausaddle. So, good morning, Davetta.
Good morning.
And good morning, Dr. Bread.
Good morning to all of you.
So, Davetta, given the importance of your role as the Kiowa Indian Council Administrator, according to our 2017 Kiowa Constitution, it lays out there's supposed to be a coordinator for our annual meeting. So me and Dr. Bread have formulated some questions just to kind of have a conversation. This is a conversation podcast just to relay information to the citizens about our upcoming KIC meeting. What is the date of that meeting right now?
Saturday, April 6th,
Okay.
2024.
So me and Dr. Bread are just going to ask some questions. We'll go back and forth. I'd like for you to kind of introduce yourself so people know who you are, a little bit about your experience formally serving as a KIC coordinator, and who you come from, so people will know a little bit about what family you come from, what's your role been in the tribe, and however long you want to talk. There's no time limit to this podcast.
My name is Davetta Geimausaddle, and my family, my parents are Dave Geimausaddle and Melva Jean Tai Geimausaddle, and our family's from the Rainy Mountain area. My grandma was Julia Sontakoi Lone Wolf, and my grandpa was Bell Lone Wolf, and that's on the maternal side. And on my dad's side, it's George Geimausaddle and May Apecombe. So they were from the Zoltone side, and my mom was from the Banghaw Creek side. So it's wonderful to have such a family tree with both sides being proud and being a citizenship for the Kiowa tribe. So we've been very active with our people and our services, especially through my dad's service on KBC, and then as the Constitution was ratified in 2017, that transition became a legislator as the business committee was dissolved. So I've had a lot of conversation with my dad regarding the people and services and the development of gaming, and I think that's where my desire to be a part and participate and somehow improve areas that I can possibly be a service. That's what my goal has always been. So back in 2017, when I became employed through the Indian Child Welfare Program, the application process opened up for KIC coordinator, and I had sat with Donnie Topai and Mr. Kamalti, who was chair at that time, if there was a possibility, since it was a part-time coordinator position, would it be approved that I be allowed to apply to that position as KIC coordinator, especially considering it was part-time. And they approved and said, yes, it's okay. And so I applied, and surprisingly, I was elected. I didn't think that would happen so fast, but I was. And I think it was like 5 votes is how I became elected. So that's when the position started. Now, as a KIC coordinator, we didn't have policies. We were starting from the ground up with this Constitution that started back in 2017. So every turn and every event and circumstance situation was new. So we were always having to sit back and think about how are we going to do this following the Constitution. So the one thing that I did discuss with Mr. Chairman is, where is the KIC coordinator office? And at that time, there was no office. So we had to figure a way to provide an office. So in 2018 and 2019, there was never an office location. So I was pretty much just always on the phone, on the email, traveling, meeting with legislators and their service area.
Your car was your office.
Yes, my car was my office. So that was taxing, and I think it compromised the focus that I really desired to have, to be able to meet with a lot of concerned Kiowas who wanted to discuss. And I think the one thing I learned during that short time was information. Kiowa people want a lot of information. They want to know what's going on in our executive office, in our legislator office, and how are the politics, and has it changed from what it used to be to the current Constitution. It was just constantly sharing the updates and the structure, and then I think as we were developing with the Constitution, the one area, branch of government that was missing, that was so important, was the Kiowa court. Because the idea of a Kiowa court is to interpret our Constitution. So without that Kiowa court, I think we felt like we didn't have a strong base, a strong structure, because everyone was allowed to interpret what they were reading, and we didn't have a court to go to decide on how it should be implemented based on how it's written. So I saw that, I listened to discussion, and I could feel that pot boiling again, because there were no concise decision makings through our court. So when the court finally opened last year, January in 2023, that was a big celebration, especially in the areas of decision making, interpreting the Constitution and how it's supposed to be read and implemented for the structure for each branch of government. Because the one thing that we appreciate as employees at the tribe is providing that Kiowa Indian Council is the supreme branch of government, and that's how our citizens want to be respected, but yet there's not enough information to share with everyone. Because the one thing I learned as I was at OU studying the tribal constitution is communication, how important that is, and how effective that can be, especially to everyone who don't know what's going on. And that's an area that I was hoping that could be addressed as I continued with doing a service for the tribe and the education part of it as well. So it's been a learning experience. It's been an interesting experience, and most important, I think when everyone is doing their job as far as responsibilities within their branch and how the Constitution reads, I think we will improve. It's just taking more time than we anticipated, especially from 2017 to 2023, and here we are in 2024, finally, with our branches efficiently working now, and it's still a work in progress for sure.
Dr. Brett is my co-host for this podcast. I'm going to turn it over to him to ask the first question to Davetta.
Thank you very much, Davetta, for being with us this morning. You mentioned a couple of terms there that I want to reiterate to our audience, and in terms of what we're trying to accomplish with this technology or this system we call podcast here. One of them is communication. Very difficult, I agree with you, to communicate, especially when you get such a diverse population as our Kiowa people are, for that matter, for a lot of tribes in our country affected by policies like relocation, etc. So we're making an effort to bring to our citizens some accurate information and communication. And also the people that are doing that for us that among the tribe. I like for you to talk a little bit about what I call tribal affairs. I look at people like yourself who work with the tribe as employees, people who specialize in tribal affairs. Some people do it in health, some people do it in education and housing, in this case Indian child welfare, et cetera, et cetera. What's your experience in tribal affairs before you came back to Oklahoma, a tribal member?
Tribal affairs before returning to Oklahoma in '93 was just university experience in California. So I had worked with Cal Poly, Chaffey College, and University of Southern California. And those colleges were more about education with medical students and just student services and for financial support, and then for disability services in those areas. So as far as working with tribal population, there was very little, because in California you have to really search for tribal population since they're scattered throughout the state. So that experience wasn't available unless I decided to look for an Indian center and be actively involved with an Indian center.
So along that line, would you say a lot of people who were relocated have similar experiences that you've had with having a desire to return back home and help in some way, but having limited experience there, with the exception of the concept of Indian centers, which came about in the 60s and 70s, and a lot of people that were employed by those centers at times eventually migrated, for lack of a better term, back to their home settings and using that experience to further their interest and desire to help their people. Is that kind of a common story for people in relocation, in your opinion?
Yes. When we were in California as elementary school level, my parents missed living here, and because they were just very proud, and they felt like they were traveling through a state rather than living and being, I guess, establishing themselves as residents of California. They knew as elders they were going to return home, because that's what Kiowas do. So we would return home often. We would return home for the fair. We would return home for family events.
Celebrations, etc.
We would return home for funerals, and vacations. So we were always traveling Route 66 and then eventually I-40 to return home for every year. So because they missed Oklahoma, we became part of Indian Revival Center, which was located in Bell Gardens. And there they had a sports program, and they had youth activity programs to reach out to all tribes surrounding the Los Angeles County area. So we were in contact with various tribes that were also part of the relocation service programs that arrived to California, especially the southern part of California. So we met up with people from Muskogee Creek Nation, the Cherokee Nation, Choctaw Nation, and Comanches were out there, and not very many Apaches. And then, of course, we had the South Dakota bunch that were there as well. So, yes, it was relocation.
So, Davetta, as the newly appointed Kiowa Indian Council Administrator, would you kindly share a little bit about how you became the administrator? And then what's on the agenda for the meeting for the Kiowa Indian Council in April?
As of April 1st, Christy Wolf resigned as KIC coordinator.
Did you say April 1st?
No, February 1st, excuse me. And this was the third resignation since KIC became a branch of government. And this is an area that I'm sure KIC would like to discuss in the policies and procedures, because when resignation occurs, the dilemma, or rather the urgency, is to replace the coordinator position, because the coordinator is the one who organizes, plans, and receives and reviews resolutions from the people. And without a coordinator, the administrator is limited to what they can do without that coordinator position. But Mr. Chairman decided that he would like to do an administrator position effective February 1st, so that I could at least receive the resolutions for 2024 and have them ready to share with the elected coordinator on April 6th. So the discussion is, the agenda will be to elect a coordinator and also have program updates from the various directors, but provided to the executive director, who will be sharing that information with the people who attend. And then I guess share the resolutions with that elected coordinator that day, so that they can plan a special meeting to just focus on resolutions for 2024.
Thank you for that information. I'm going to ask you a very practical question, and not testing you about your knowledge or anything like that, but I would venture to guess that a significant amount of our population, especially in District 7, have not really read thoroughly the Constitution that you were a part of refining somewhat back in 2017. What is the KIC, and what role does it play in our governance as far as our audience is concerned? Well, practically speaking, what is the purpose of the KIC in this Constitution?
It's a branch of government that is focused more on the information that's going on with our leadership. And also the most important part is reviewing and approving resolutions that could be a benefit to all citizens who are seeking services, or requesting additional services, or updating services. And it would be provided to all districts that are within our Constitution. And I think that's what's important for the people, is that they be allowed the services that districts 1 through 6 appreciate. And then how can District 7 be a part of that, even though they don't live in the area? So it's an area that I think our grants people should be considering as they apply for some opportunities for the people, so that they're not restricted in a certain area, but it should be open to all citizens that don't live here, so that District 7 can appreciate as much as the other citizens in Districts 1 through 6. So it's important that whatever services the tribe can offer, that District 7 can also be included for future opportunities.
To your understanding, does the KIC provide any kind of oversight for our government? And then, if the answer is yes to that, who oversees KIC?
From my understanding, KIC it's a 4-branch government.
Yeah.
So as KIC is requesting information, that we be allowed the information and that we are able to discuss budgets and that we're able to discuss what's going on with these budgets within each program, and that KIC also can be part of helping Mr. Chairman decide what he's going to accept and approve for the benefit of all citizens. It should be a continual discussion between the supreme branch of government with our executive and our legislature, and then the tribal court being able to interpret anything that's not clear and specific, that there might be further discussion in those areas. But the goal is to participate and provide a check and balance for each branch, so that we are all informed and we know what's available and that it can be shared with everyone, especially with the three groups, age groups, your elders, your children, and then your working people.
Who has final approval of resolutions that are submitted for lawmaking by legislators, for decisions of the executive branch, for that affects us as a people, and for that matter, as KIC as a whole? Is KIC the final step in approval as far as those things are concerned, or are there other processes that we must go through?
When we appreciated that first resolution meeting in 2018, and the resolutions were presented, and those in attendance voted what we approved or opposed, the one area that was not discussed was how is this going to be funded. So when that meeting was complete and successful with reviewing those resolutions, the vice chair and the chairman realized that day that the responsibility of funding was going to be a challenge, because there was so much request for funding to lower the age group for the elders with privilege of Christmas stipends. And social services also submitted to increase the benefit to once a year funding for all citizens, especially 18 and older, from $250 to up to $400. And that's a large group of citizens to be able to provide to. So knowing that that budget was then going to increase, and there was no means of support to discuss to effectively implement that, that was the dilemma for the executive. And so as a result, the only one that I'm aware of to this day is the elder age group was reduced to 62, and those are the ones that are appreciating the benefit of Christmas. And it's a budget discussion every year, how that's going to be accomplished because of the numbers that it increased.
So, Davetta, I had the pleasure of serving with you on the Constitutional Revision Committee when we were first initiating, this new Constitution. I know that you did some research on between our old Constitution and our new Constitution, and that required a lot of analysis. Dr. Brad was one of your professors. I think I actually probably sat on your committee, for your thesis, and I think there's a lot of our tribal citizens that don't understand the differences and the experience we had prior to this new Constitution, and I think that needs to be a part of the conversation here today. What do you see the distinct differences in how we operated before versus how we're operating now?
The early Constitution structure was a template that was provided to all tribes back in the 1930s. And one several reasons that the government wanted to rush this template structure to tribes was, number one, land rights, mineral rights, and boundaries in tribal trust land. Tribes who had trust land, governments were invading their areas and taking whatever they thought could be claimed as their own, despite the fact that it belonged to a tribal member. And that was the first complaint on the table to the agency. And then the other was our children. We were losing children to non-natives as I guess there was so much poverty during that time and disease. So our families were losing parents and grandparents, and they were left with children, and no one knew what to do. So because of those two reasons, the government rushed this template of business structure to the tribes. But the idea, as it was explained to each tribe at that time, was to structure it according to their own culture, their ideas, and the way they would like to maintain their community. But at that time, our leadership were not educated in that area, so they understood that they accepted the template and they just put in their own ideas. And they were, I think they were committee men that they appointed from each family, similar to how our bands were traditional. And they are the ones who decided that they were going to go ahead and accept it as a KBC structure at business and hopefully accomplish a Kiowa government and to take care of our land rights and also take care of and hopefully keep our children with our families that are without. So from 1930s, it was ratified in the 1970s, and I don't remember the first chairman back in the 1970s. And from that point forward, our Constitution was never updated. Yeah. It just continued status quo from the 30s to the 70s to going forward to 2017. And as I was in the graduate program at OU, the one area that I noted is we weren't a business. We didn't have business. The Kiowa tribe didn't have any business to provide that revenue to be able to share with our citizens. So, and I was reading that other tribes did revise their constitution according to how their culture was structured and appreciated. And I noted that the Kiowas never did it. So my question was, how do we begin to discuss to improve? And I even spoke to Chairman Horst back during that time when I was an undergrad at USAO. How can we improve and consider a structure that's different that could improve our relationships with all our members? And he stated that it has to begin with the Constitution. And he stated also that it's going to take ad hoc committee to research it and then be actively going out to the people and asking them what do they want, what are their ideas to improve it so that they feel like the tribe government is more effective and including them as a family and their needs. So that's the idea that I went on as far as discussing with the committee on how to improve it.
Just a quick follow-up to that, Davetta. I think one thing that we've discussed before is that KBC structure. You had a Kiowa Business Committee that was writing laws, interpreting laws, and enforcing laws. that one committee was, and I think that was a big problem. We had several, for lack of a better term, we'll say takeovers, because people would get in control and be the chairman of the tribe and write a law, change their law, and interpret their laws because we didn't have a court, and there was not a system of checks and balances with that old Constitution, and that's why there was a movement to create that checks and balances. And I think we're seeing that now within our tribe, and it's still young because it was never fully implemented under their former Chairman Kamalti. We didn't have the court, which we do now, but there was a huge rift between the executive branch and the legislative branch. Do you think checks and balances is functional right now, or are we still learning how to do that?
Considering my position as Indian child welfare, I would say that we are still learning. And the area that's most important to the Kiowa Indian Council citizens is transparency. The goal is to be transparent. The goal is to have a check and balance. And most of the time today, we just don't have that information. It's not available to us. And actually having an annual meeting every April really is not sufficient. I think we should reconsider as KIC policy to even consider quarterly meetings, because that's how we report on a lot of our program services, is quarterly, because it provides reports, it provides budget updates, it provides numbers on who's appreciating the opportunities and keeping our families informed. So that's my opinion.
Led right into the question I was going to ask you about effectiveness of this multi-tiered government and the governance that prevails as a result of having a change. Warren just got to addressing that somewhat. When it comes to the effectiveness of the KIC, you mentioned a few things we could do that might enhance it. It's something I think that we need to address in a special meeting, using the word in the Constitution. But to get there, we have some processes that we must adhere to, which is inhibiting us to some extent. What are some of the areas that you would think or suggest that we do to enhance the effectiveness of the KIC?
There's resolutions. They discuss from the citizens what they would like to discuss and hopefully get those in attendance to approve, to push forward. And there is a resolution in the one submitted for this 2024 is to update and improve our policies and procedures, especially in the areas of meetings and cases of resignations from coordinators. So the people are thinking about how to improve it. So that's number one, to get a resolution, share it with those in attendance, and then once it's approved, then take it out to all the voters throughout all our districts to see if they also would like to improve that area. And then I think another resolution should be considered is to have a conference, constitutional conference, and that way all citizens can attend and provide an agenda to discuss the areas that they would like to see improve for our branch, such as KIC, and then have the executive and legislators sitting with us so that they can hear their voters on areas that are important to them, and the legislators who represent the people can also consider a protocol process to make it happen.
To accomplish such suggestions, do we, in your opinion, have to go through amending the Constitution, since those things aren't necessarily reflected in the Constitution per se. And I guess where I'm getting at is somewhat my concern for the effectiveness of KICS reported as, demonstrated as, addressed in the Constitution. And it seems to me a lot of times from my experiences on the peripheral as well as being a part of teaching about tribal governments is that a few people are engaged. And we have what, you said close to 11,000 population, of which probably over 50% of that is out of District 7, but yet I asked the question, how many District 7 people are represented at that particular gathering, the annual one? So I concur with you as far as additional meetings, which means additional money in the budget areas, except also possibly even a change in the term coordinator. The coordinator is not, in my opinion, just there to coordinate the meeting. Mm-hmm. They need to be the receiver of the information, to compile it, to report it to the various branches accordingly, and to represent the perspectives. And it seems like there's some limitation in the Constitution of that type of activity. And the amendment process, I think, is something that really has me scratching my head, because I calculate it's going to take us close to, 2,000 people signing the petition in order just to amend the Constitution. I think it equates out to what it says, 2/3 or 60% or so of the population must, and that we can't even get 150 people at times to come together. So there's some areas of the Constitution that need amending accordingly. That means according to today, not in the past. So are you in favor of, what's your thoughts about that as far as amending the Constitution? Is that why the Constitution Convention concept you just mentioned is important, you think?
It is important. I think what discourages a lot of people from attendance is they think that their voice is not important. So if they would see evidence of activity that's respectful of what they think should change, my opinion is they would be there. And we can cater to the districts 1 through 6 for those meetings and those discussions and resolutions and possibilities of change. But I think the result of if it effectively being approved and accepted, then District 1 through 6 would have to present it to District 7, where our majority voters are. So what can work and improve and discuss how to change and improve services and information and just a protocol that's effective with checks and balance, it has to be actively working for the people in Districts 1 through 6. So if that's not happening for District 1 through 6, it's going to be a difficult task to convince District 7 who are not there and not actively participating with everything that goes on for day-to-day business. So it's very important what's going on with Districts 1 through 6 to be able to share the opportunities for District 7, because District 7 has that major voting. So it's important for District 7 to know this.
So I have a question about, thoughts of how you would approach, or how does the KIC approach and engage our Kiowa citizens to ensure their voices are heard? We're in this age of technology. Mm-hmm. How do people communicate? My nieces and nephews who are below 10 years of age, they communicate on their phone. Our elders still want a paper newspaper. Then you have the baby boomers who want everything via email. And then you have a lot of people that want everything on social media. But how do we be transparent with our needs and communication? Because you're right. A lot of our citizens say, we don't know what's going on because it's not communicated from the tribe. And, I have my own opinion about the tribal website, But where's the hub for information?
More importantly,
Who makes the decisions on what gets posted on there, and how do we be transparent? Because, I think that's what the citizens want, and you said it here on this podcast today. So what are your thoughts on how we communicate and enhance engagement with our citizens?
From what I understand, and I could be wrong, that with the Kiowa Tribe website, as it's submitted to our PR, who's Monique Barons, she has to make sure it's approved as far as information and announcements and events. And so there are times that I've been told, I don't know if it's factual, that there are some informations that events that are not posted and provided to the website. So with that in mind, I think for KIC to be informed is develop our own website, our own means of communication and PR, so that we're not restricted to what's approved within the Kiowa Tribe website, but KIC, being the large branch of government, would consider having their own communication channel, whether it be podcast, whether it be Zoom, whether it be website, whether it be newspapers, whether it be social media, whatever works to address 18 up to elders, whatever it takes to open those avenues of communication for KIC, I think should be the responsibility with KIC, rather than depend on the tribe and their avenues of approval. So that's just my opinion.
as a District 7 tribal member, I agree with you 100%. Of course, my first thought is being an administrator's budgets too, as well as to do these things, because it takes obviously modification or refinement of your budget. And KIC does have a budget that they operate on, but it seems like it's limited just to coordination, other than things like we're doing right now. Task force appointments. They have the capacity, KIC, within the Constitution, to make a decision on how they're going to operate and function within the scope of the Constitution. I would think they would like to try to identify some people, areas of need, and appoint committees or task force from volunteers or whatever to address this kind of question like Mr. Wheaton just asked you about how do we go about. A lot of the questions I've had and have heard relate to how do we do these things, not what we should do, but how do we do them? And we're very limited on that because of finances and logistics other than financial itself. So looking at it, I said, okay, I think we can work that out. If we're given an appointment to do it, an assignment to do it by KIC, which calls for a resolution probably this coming meeting, we got to get it in real quick. And otherwise, it's not going to be listened to or read until the next annual meeting that we have, or a special meeting. So once we get there, we talk a lot about the context right now. We're doing the contextual stuff. But once we get to their KIC meeting, and I observe a lot of it on the network, and I see a lot of chaos there. And I see a lot of opinions. People call it chaos who watch it, who aren't familiar with our tribal culture, our tribal ways. And then we try to make the adjustments to our tribal people to adhere to non-tribal customs and ways, quote, running meetings. Now, one of the things I'm saying, we need to establish our own means of order. Everybody brings out the big old thick book of Robert's Rules of Order. Yeah, who knows that much about it? It seems like they think they have the power there. I think we need to look at examining how we keep order at these meetings other than that's imposed on us. Now, if we could appoint a little committee to ascertain or make suggestions on how to conduct those meetings along the lines of order, the federal government isn't going to dictate to us how to run our KIC meeting, but we let them. Yeah. We let them. We would exert ourselves a little bit. I think we'll get more production out of these meetings than the chaos at times. And I understand some people's opinion. I'm an older man right now, and I kind of lose some sense of order myself at times, but I didn't feel like I earned it as an elderly person. And so a lot of our people think that way when they go there. So I would really strongly suggest to get more productivity out of the meetings is to have a change of venue in terms of order. I don't know if you need to elect a chairperson every meeting. That might be a role the administrator can assume if we can address the constitutional amendments, et cetera, et cetera. So it's in context, there's more to the success and effectiveness of KIC than just what's written in the Constitution. Because half the time we don't follow it, because we don't know it, because we're not communicated with in certain respects. So I think it's something that we need to look at and examine with research and recommendations from a body, a task force of Kiowa people, to be reported within 6 months to a year of the next meeting, and to do something with the information that we glean from it, make some changes if necessary. So I like the idea. I see you're talking the same thing. This is how we have proposed that we communicate with District 7. We tried newsletter, like Warren said. We tried the blah, blah, blah. Now we're trying podcasts. We hope it reaches people. And I encourage that a great deal with KIC to go take that route too, as far as communicating with KIC people.
And just to add on, Dr. Brad, I think we can, there's other tribes that have developed rules of order that we could look at. And I'm not saying we copy. Kiowa people, we don't like to copy any tribe.
This Constitution was copied.
But I think that I've heard it said, why do we have to copy what they're doing? But I think other tribes have systems, indigenous systems of order that work. And if we can look at what we're doing and kind of, like you said, glean information from those different, that could be a part of the task force to say, look at these rules that they've, implemented. Yeah. Are they working or not? And I don't like to reinvent the wheel. I like to look at what works for other people that are
like to roll it.
Like to roll it a little bit and move forward, progress with what works. Yeah. And then we cut out the things that don't work or that are not reflective of our values as Kiowa people. And me and Dr. Brad have talked about that before. I think a lot of the chaos we see at the KIC meeting is also a reflection of our Kiowa values of dignity and respect, love and compassion for one another as Kiowa people. And I don't know how we educate people on that,
See, the how word again.
Yeah, the how do we do that,
We educate them.
Yeah, we educate them, and that's a little bit about what this podcast is doing. Hopefully, it gets to our citizens and helps them reflect on our values. You see it on social media. It's so divisive, argumentative, and counterproductive to what we, who we are as Kiowa people. But Zamp Day, you got 20 pages of Kiowa stuff. How do people filter through that and understand what is the factual and what is not? Because, man, our Kiowa people, they believe everything is true on there, and it's not. So I guess just kind of going back to that task force idea of research and analysis, I think that's a great recommendation, for KIC for future meetings to kind of take up. Because I do see, we're going to need some order and some kind of a orderly way to filter through this chaos that we're currently going through and constantly not moving forward with the Kiowa Indian Council, because we need all four branches of government to work. It's like driving a car and you always got one tire that keeps on going flat on you, and you have to change that tire out constantly. Eventually you're going to hopefully trade in the car or buy a new car, So that's just something we're kind of going off on a tangent, but I think it's a good thing to kind of consider and think about. And, is that something, you have, is the KIC, do they have that ability to have a task force and kind of establish their own rules of order? And what are your thoughts on that?
The policies and procedures allow the coordinator to consider and appoint a committee to review resolutions, because the first, response I received as I reviewed resolutions in 2018 is, who are you? Why do you think you have that power to decide and correct and edit? And I realized, well, yeah, you're right. Who am I? I'm just a coordinator. So then I reached out to an attorney who was working for the tribe, and I asked him to look at it, and he provided his legal opinion, because his goal was to make sure it did not conflict with the Constitution. And when I accepted his opinion and shared it, then the negative response rose up. And I thought, okay, that didn't work. My opinion didn't work. A legal's opinion didn't work. Okay, now we need to get a committee that represents the districts, so that it would be more of a shared opinion with all districts, so that it would reflect and advocate who they are as a district, to be on the same page with a resolution as it's submitted.
One final question, I guess, as we get ready to close out this podcast. Where do citizens go to access the policies and procedures for the Kiowa Indian Council in preparation for this meeting coming up in April?
It's available on the Kiowa website, and then also you can contact me, and it's dgeimausaddle@kiowatribe.org, and my cell phone number is 580-919-7028.
My final question is, maybe you can announce who the candidates are for the upcoming KIC vote in April.
It's Steve Hopkins as one candidate, and he's from Lawton. And then Deborah Wilson Schrock, she's from Lawton. She's a candidate. And Karen So, she's from Lawton as well. And those are the three candidates that submitted their resume to Mr. Chairman.
So in closing, Davetta, are there any closing comments you'd like to leave with us? Any invitation or anything to the citizens you'd like to say as they listen to this podcast in regards to the Kiowa Indian Council?
Back in 2018, as I was a coordinator and to prepare the annual meeting, the one area that I noted that KIC appreciate is raffles and food and freebies to the Kiowa Casino. And that was to entice and encourage citizens to attend the annual meeting, and transportation. So those areas will be in operation and will be available to those in attendance. We will have raffles, we will have food, and we will have transportation available for those who need to be a part of it and appreciate.
Thank you for mentioning transportation, because we've coordinated with the Kiowa Indian Council for rides from the Norman office and the Tulsa office. And if there are any citizens that need a ride or would like to attend the annual meeting in April, we've set a deadline for March the 5th to RSVP for a ride from Norman, OKC, and Tulsa. Make sure you contact our District 7 office. You can call at 405-857-8408 just to kind of reach out to us, or send us an email, district7legislature@kiowatribe.org. We also have a link tree sign up on our website. If you go to the District 7 website, kiowatribe.org/district-7, you can access that link tree and RSVP online if you'd like. So thanks for reminding me. I just wanted to mention that. We are making rides available, but Zank Day, there was only 3 people that rode last year, so it's a lot of work and it's a lot of coordination to select buses to pick up. But at what point do we utilize our resources if people aren't going to utilize them, So Just putting that out there for District 7 citizens. And
Snacks on the bus.
there will be snacks on the bus, water and a snack. Healthy snack. Apples, oranges, grapes. Hey. So,
Davetta, thank you so much for coming down. I've enjoyed seeing you again and visiting with you down here. We might even consider later on in the year to look at the concept of virtual meetings, Zoom meetings, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, I bet 60% of our tribal members don't have access to that type of equipment at their home base or whatever the case. So, this is a good question for a good task force to address, make recommendations for.
and thank you for just being here and all the work that you do within child welfare, and now taking on the task of Kiowa Indian Council Administrator. And we appreciate you being on our podcast today, and we look forward to hearing from you. And Dr. Brett has a little gift. Our Kiowa way, Dr. Brett's becoming an artist. And so he paints different prayer items, prayer sticks. Today he's got you a really nice keen back scratcher. And all our Kiowa people will appreciate that.
That's a Kiowa way.
A Kiowa way.
Give you something when you come
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Oh.
Just for the back.
Thank you all for listening today, and we'll see you again on the next edition of Thongia.
Deon Deaho for tuning in to this episode of Thongia, our District 7 podcast. The music was provided by Mr. Terry Tsotai. For more information on our legislative work, please visit our website, kiowatribe.org/district-7. Thank you all for tuning in. Hegaim oi don't I.